Hello, I'm Corey Cohn, and this is the quarterly report for Placer AI. I'm looking forward to showing you all that we have in store for this quarter. Obviously, quarter four is an interesting quarter with the holiday season, and it is an interesting opportunity for businesses to visit their foot traffic data and make informed business decisions. Before I get started, I'm going to talk through our agenda today. First, we'll do an introduction to the Office of Business Development. So I'm Corey Cohn, and I am one of the staff of the Office of Business Development. Then we'll transition to what is Placer AI, and we'll talk a little bit about how the city is using Placer AI as a tool. Then we'll do a business district overview, and this is something I'll reiterate over the presentation, but really, it's a great opportunity that the city has this technology, and I really implore business stakeholders to request customized reports for your individual addresses. Um, it gives you an opportunity to drill down exactly who your customer is, your audience, and the foot traffic patterns of your audience. Office of Business Development, we help with a variety of things. We don't just do these quarterly reports. We provide assistance to businesses, and we try to be that liaison for business stakeholders in the community. So first, we'll talk a little bit about Placer, but I just want to give you a list of some of the other things that this office can help you with, including finding commercial location, um, through helping you throughout the regulatory and permitting process, knowing zoning. We also have a variety of incentives and grants at the city. And we are a tool for you guys to promote yourselves, whether that be social media, The Weekender, which is a great newsletter, Enjoy Highland Park as a visitor site, and our kiosks. Here's my contact information. I'm Corey Cohn, but we also have Angela Schaefer, part of our team, and Aaron Jason. How Placer AI works. So before we dive into the data, I do like to give an overview on what this technology is. So essentially, Placer AI works by utilizing data from your phone or other mobile devices. Essentially, for those who consent, um, you have your data shared in an anonymous fashion, and Placer can use your patterns of how you move with your mobile device to assess your foot traffic data, and it does from millions of devices across the country. And what I mean by any location is we can assess something from a region to a city, all the way down to a customized point location, whether that be an address, a block, etc. As long as there's a sufficient amount of data, a sufficient number of devices, Placer is able to track the foot traffic technology and help you as a business stakeholder make informed decisions. And so what Placer does is it aggregates all this data and it uses other providers to find information about your customer through demographics, consumer behaviors, what their household incomes are, and more. It's a really impressive data tool, but I think one thing that's really important to note is as great of a tool it is, it's really best used when you're trying to make those data-informed decisions for your business or your property. So I'll break this down by business district today. First, we'll start off with the central business district, and then we'll follow with Ravinia, Crossroads, Briergate, Garrity Square, etc. So first, we'll start off with the central business district, or as many refer to it, downtown Highland Park. So just to tell you a little bit of how the city uses this platform is we use it for events. So measuring the success of our local events, seeing what are the patterns of our visitors when they come to local events. So take, for example, something that happened in quarter four, Stews, Brews, and Blues, very popular event. So this is a case study where we'd be analyzing, how successful this event was, and this event was hosted in the lot location, so the parking lot on St. John's that's been held for many events this summer. Overall, we ran this report from about 4 to 10 p.m., which is the duration of the event, including setup. And we saw about 1.2 thousand visitors, which is one of the highest attended events of the city at the city during the year for a city hosted event. Um, Attendees on average stayed over an hour, around 70 minutes, and most visitors came between 7 and 8 p.m. Um, One interesting nugget that I always like to point out is I think there's this belief that a lot of residents are the ones who attend the events, and although that it does make up a good percentage of the attendees for our local events, as you can see, over 59% are actually visitors from outside of Highland Park. This can help us answer questions on what are the demographics and psychographics of the people who visit, where do our attendees come from, which answers that question, and where do our attendees go before and after their visits. So just to give you a glance, wanted to highlight what the foot traffic data was in quarter four. Typically, you will see that quarter four tends to have slightly less visitors than quarter three, mostly due to the abundance of holidays that happen in quarter four. This can make a difference in the amount of visitations and the amount of visitors. As you can see, there's a slight decrease in the amount of visitors, but the dwell time, which is like the time, the length of stay somebody stayed consistent, and the visitor frequency was also consistent. Visits by hour. This is important to consider when you're determining operating hours for your business. When is it viable for you to stay open? When is it not viable to stay open, and adjusting your hours accordingly. So I think one thing I'd like to note is that there is a lot of foot traffic, particularly from the 11 to about 2 to 3 o'clock hour. That's where the most foot traffic you'll see within the Central Business District is. Peak is around noon, that lunchtime hour. I think for the days of the week, particularly the lunch hour during Monday through Friday can be a very important time to be open, particularly if you're a restaurant, and offers opportunity for some of the office businesses that are in Highland Park to grab lunch at one of our many great restaurants in the Central Business District. I think one thing to also note is from 5 to 7, there's about the same consistency of visitors within the Central Business District. But one thing I like to always visit when you talk about this is it the chicken or the egg? Is it that businesses close at 5, that no visitors show up at 5 or after 5, or is it that the opposite? Just consider that when you're looking at your operating hours. Visits by day. So what are the days that see the most visitations? What you'd normally see Friday and Saturday are your busiest days by foot traffic. However, I think a couple things I want to note was Tuesday among the other days has a very high foot traffic value, 171,000 visitors on Tuesdays in quarter four. So, if Tuesday is not a day you're operating as a business, you might be losing out on a lot of potential customers. Otherwise, you see a consistency between Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then Sunday, same kind of premise with the idea that is it the chicken or the egg? When you're talking about is it that because I'm closed on Sunday, there are less visitors, or is it that people don't show up on Sundays because the businesses are open? So you got to kind of determine that. I encourage you to always do a trial run and see how successful it might be. This is a new slide compared to our previous quarterly report. One thing I want to report on, particularly with quarter four being, specific days where peak visitations occur between Black Friday, between Small Business Saturday, Christmas approaching. I think it's important to note just what days were the most visitors in Highland Park. And I did this in comparison to 2023 numbers. So first, just wanted to highlight Wednesday, November 27th. This is a day before Thanksgiving, up 55% from 2023. That's a drastic difference, more than all of the positive increases combined. And I think this is interesting to note A lot of people are visiting, Highland Park may be home for a lot of people. So they might tend to, want a night out the night before Thanksgiving. So there was a lot of foot traffic in the Central Business District that day. So if that's a day that you tend to close, again, I might reconsider that going into 2025's Thanksgiving holiday. Some other very popular days are the Saturdays around the Christmas season. So I'll highlight December 14th, no, November 23rd, and then Small Business Saturday, November 30th. These are all very popular days where people visit to no surprise. People are doing their holiday shopping. Um, and in comparison to last year, Small Business Saturday was up 10%. So that's really encouraging to see. Um, Now, one thing to note is, Black Friday is down 3%, not a drastic number by any means. But I think this does tell you a little bit about how people view downtown Highland Park in terms of a shopping district. I think people tend to view it as more boutique, more small business oriented. And so more people are willing to maybe go there on a Saturday, Small Business Saturday, than Black Friday, where they might be shopping at more of the chains during those days, which downtown Highland Park maybe has less of those and more small boutique shops. Visitors by business or by zip code. So I always show this because I think it's important to note that most people who visit Highland Park are not people who live in Highland Park. I think they're, again, contrary to popular belief. Highland Park draws visitors from all around. Clearly, our neighboring communities here, but like Deerfield, Glencoe, Highwood, and Northbrook, but as well, a whole host of other zip codes, including Chicago or neighbor or cities that are farther north. This is also a new slide. I think this is a very important slide for business owners to look at. So this is the audience profile of Central Business District visitors. And so I wanted to show you this because I think this shows a really interesting point of who your consumers are. So there are, three significant audience profiles. And so these audience profiles come from something called Experian Mosaic profiles. Experian, which is a credit agency, what they do is they use through their, credit reporting system, a consumer segmentation system that helps businesses understand their customers better. Whether that be their demographics, like their socioeconomics, ethnicity, or affluence, their lifestyle behaviors, their locations, whether they're urban or rural, their property characteristics, are they household owners, are they renters? These are all important pieces to help a business further market their products, their services to the most prevalent people within the community. And so what I did is I took visitors within a 10-minute drive of the Central Business District, and I looked at what were the most common audience profiles for this. So these are interactive. These are actually clickable. I'll click on this. It's called the Power Elite. So here is the example of an Experian profile. Um, Power Elites make up about 63.2% of the households within a 10-minute drive of the Central Business District. So the Power Elites are the wealthiest households in the most exclusive neighborhoods. Usually these are people within their peak earning years of their careers. So a lot of ability to invest and a lot of ability to spend. What you'll see is that this group tends to be the head of the household tends to be about 36 to 45, and that they have older kids. So, either high school, maybe late middle school. That's the most common for this class. And these are homeowners, so for the most part, not renters. But these are important characteristics for a business owner to determine how to market them to. I'd be happy to run a specific demographic profile for each business, but let me explore the further Experian categories that make up Highland Park. But this category, for example, makes up 63% of the households within a 10-minute drive. Secondly, we have booming with confidence. This makes up approximately 22% of the households within a 10-minute drive of the central business district. These are these are people who are more established couples. They tend to skew a little bit older than the power elites. So this is 51 to 65 is the primary age of the heads of the households. They're also homeowners. And these are people who typically, again, are in their peak earning years, and they are homeowners for the most part. So they also tend to have children, who are older, but a lot of them tend to be empty nesters as well. So this is the booming with confidence profile. Some other characteristics that are interesting for this profile are that they tend to be more attracted to some upscale housing. They're investing heavy. And again, they're an affluent group. Lastly, significant singles. This only makes up about 3.7% of the population within a 10-minute drive, but these tend to be singles. That's their most important characteristic, not married. And they're renters rather than homeowners. And they tend to live very active lifestyles. They might be a mix of living in suburban, but also urban dwellings. Like they may live in a more likely live in a multifamily unit rather than a single family home. Um, they are, people who are financially risk averse. And again, they're smaller households. So maybe a single person, maybe they have one child if they do have children. Now, these are the audience profiles, but I highly recommend that you request a customized report because although these are great from a distance, we can nail down particularly your business, who's coming in and who are the people who tend to be the audience. The people who buy your products or experience your services or eat at your establishments, eat or drink at your establishment. I talked about this a little bit, and I'll reiterate this throughout the presentation, but businesses can request a customized report. Um, we can provide a lot of information that's valuable, including the demographic info that I just talked about, but also the visitation hours and days, the driving distance for your audience, and where your consumers tend to visit from. Here are the instructions on how to request a customized profile. You can send it to this email address or my personal email address as well. And just include this information. Again, we'll have a downloaded report for you here, so you don't have to take a screenshot. And for the most part, these reports will be provided within 7 to 10 days. And one thing I just like to reiterate is, we try our best to make sure that we can provide a report, but sometimes, if you're a service business who maybe has less foot traffic, there may not be enough sufficient data collection for us to run a report. Or if you're a second floor, third floor business, it can be a little bit difficult as well. But I highly encourage you to still ask for a report, and we can determine that when we cross that bridge. Ravinia Business District. So we talked a little bit about Central Business District events, but I also wanted to touch on Ravinia's events. So we had the Halloween Candy Stroll. This was a very successful event. We saw people lingering around the district for a very long time. Typically, you'll find that the length of stay is longer in the Ravinia Business District, but it was encouraging to see that people are also lingering around for this event as well. The peak times for this event ran from 3:30 to 5. Obviously, as a result, the peak visitations were 4 to 5, as that's when most people came. About 1,700 business visitors came, and it was a very successful event. This tends to be more of a neighborhood event, so we saw most of the visitations happen of people who lived within Highland Park. Foot traffic data at a glance. Quarter four saw some, decreased numbers. We talked about the Central Business District being this way. Ravinia feels this even more, with the absence of the food truck Thursdays in the quarter four. This tends to be, one of the lower visitation quarters of the year. And although we see that, there's still a lot of visitors, 45,000 visitors. Visits by hour. So opposed to the Central Business District, the Ravinia Business District tends to see peak visitations at night. So I think a lot of this has to do with some of the businesses, particularly restaurants that are open late at night. So it's just an important thing to consider when you're using your operating hours. If you're not, available around the 7 p.m. window, this is, something to note, just because this is when most visitors are coming to Ravinia. This is the visits by day. Now, this is very drastically different from the previous quarter because the absence of food truck Thursdays. So, we saw a lot of visitations happen on Fridays and Saturdays. But again, Thursdays were down significantly because the food truck event was done for the season. So, people can't go to food trucks and experience the park when it's super cold in the quarter four. So, just something to note. But again, pretty strong quarters across the board. Tuesday, again, something you saw within the Central Business District as well. A lot of visitors in Ravinia on that day, opposed to the other days of the week. Again, wanted to visit this like we did for the downtown businesses, but here are the peak visitation days. Friday, October 18th, and Saturday, October 5th. These were event days where we saw a lot of traffic from Ravinia Festival, so those days saw some increases as well. This is not necessarily a business district that thrives off Small Business Saturday or Black Friday. Again, it's more boutique oriented. So those weren't the most successful days, but you could see that the candy stroll was very successful in bringing visitors in on Friday, October 25th. And you'll see this across business districts, but when businesses are closed, those are when the visitations are the lowest. So December 24th through 26th in this case. Visitors by zip code. So again, this is a little bit more strong in Ravinia opposed to the other business districts because it's a little bit more neighborhood centric. But a lot of visitors tend to be from Highland Park, but from neighboring communities and other communities as well. So just important to note the business mix. Audience profile, this will be very similar to the Central Business District because 10-minute drive from Ravinia is not different from 10-minute drive from the Central Business District. So Power Elite, Booming with Confidence, and Significant Singles were all the top three as well. There was more of a emphasis on the power elite in this audience profile. Again, as a reminder, though, 74% being um, in this case. Um, but again, important to note that the power elite was the most significant here. And those tend to be the homeowners, peak earning years with the head of household between 36 to 45. So again, important to know who your audience is, who you should market to in terms of both the heads of households or but also the kids and the other people within the households. Booming with confidence also had a significant amount as well. 18.2% of households were deemed booming with confidence as their mosaic profile, and that was the age 51 to 65. Those tend to be homeowners as well. Crossroads Business District. So now that we've done through Central and Ravinia, we'll move on to the Crossroads Business District. The Crossroads actually saw a significant increase in their visitations. I think, you think of chains, holiday shopping, this area makes a lot of sense that we saw this increase. And so that's encouraging to see that people are still spending and visiting the shopping district during the holiday season. Crossroads Business District, similar to Central Business District, but also quite different in the sense of when people visit. The peak hours are the same, so 11 to 2. However, they tend to be very steady, basically between the opening of the businesses around 10 till about 6. You'll see a consistent flow of visitations by hour. That's just due to the nature of the businesses in Crossroads, whether that be the car dealerships or some of those block retailers like Ulta, Ferguson's, LA Fitness, etc. By visits by day, again a little bit more consistent across the board. But Mondays were actually very high, I thought, and Tuesdays. I think that's because people tend to do their shopping for the week during those days, as well as Fridays and Saturdays due to people having the leisure time if they're working the normal 9 to 5 hours to go out and shop. Visitors by zip code. This is very different opposed to some of the other communities. Just to note that, because of the proximity from Crossroads to other communities, that, this has way less of a percentage of visitors from Highland Park. So they're more from the neighboring communities like Northbrook and Deerfield, just due to the proximity. We talked about this last time, but just want to revisit. Here are at a glance where we see the number of visitations. We can do this when it's a shopping center like Crossroads. You can pull this data, but you'll see that Thornton's, LA Fitness, and CVS, those are the top three most visited businesses within the Crossroads Business District. Thornton's makes a lot of sense as people stop for gas frequently. LA Fitness makes sense due to their membership model, and CVS due to their proximity on that corner as well. So very interesting to see. I ran this for about a year to give more of a glance on how people's patterns are within that district. Audience profile. So again, similar to Central and Ravinia Business District, but the Power Elite, the Booming with Confidence are the primary audiences. So the Power Elite are the wealthiest households, peak earning years. They tend to skew younger than the Booming with Confidence, 36 to 45. They have older kids, and they're homeowners, and they make about 61% of the households. Booming with confidence, more established couples, peak earning years. They might be more likely to be empty nesters, 51 to 65 years old, also homeowners. They make up about 25% of the households. And then trails that is significant singles. Again, I encourage everybody to request a customized report so you can get your specific audience profile for your business. Briargate and Garrity Square. So here's the foot traffic data for Garrity Square. Remained actually very consistent. Just given the mix of businesses in that shopping center, it makes sense. People tend to visit that Starbucks frequently or visit the restaurants in there very frequently, probably on the same duration pattern. Good to see that they're seeing consistency across the year. Briargate's a slight increase uh, as well, but interestingly, their dwell time went down. It's not a significant difference, so I don't think there's anything to really observe here other than maybe more people driving and maybe prepping their cars, given the amount of auto repair shops in Briargate during that season, as well as Jewel. One of their more successful quarters tends to be quarter four due to the holidays as well. Garrity Square, you see those peak hours happen around, 1 to 4. Um, and it is very peak oriented curve here. So 3 p.m., that is the golden time for your business to be open. Uh, Also, Briargate, a little bit different of a skew. People tend to go in the morning. I think that's because people tend to grocery shop in the morning opposed to the afternoon. One thing about Briargate's data is it's very skewed to that Jewel Osco because that is the anchor of that entire business district. And it sees one of the most visitations out of any business in Highland Park. So just something to note. But it's pretty consistent. I mean, uh, between 10 and 5 p.m. to see what the visitors by hour are in Briargate. Visitors by day, Monday is the most popular day, and this is very interesting. I think this is because of inventory, for inventory, as well as when people tend to grocery shop. People tend to grocery shop I think earlier in the week, they're Mondays, they're Tuesdays. I also think a lot of the dealerships and auto repair shops see a lot of their repairs on those days as well, just talking to them anecdotally. So that makes sense that Monday is more, but it's fairly consistent throughout. Contrary to the other business districts, you'll notice that Saturday is less common for people to visit the district. I think a lot of it is that many of those businesses are closed on the weekends, one, and two. I think an important thing to note is people don't tend to grocery shop um, during that day. There was a significant decrease in Jewel's amount of visitors on that Saturday as well. Garrity Square, pretty consistent from what we've seen in other business districts. Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays being the most popular. Visitors by zip code. You'll kind of see Deerfield has a very strong hold on this area of town just due to its proximity. It makes about 70% of the visitors in that area. So one thing to note, it's significant more so here than any other business district. So when you're thinking of your marketing tactics and your Garrity Square or uh, Briargate Business District, it might be good to consider um, marketing opportunities in Deerfield as well as Highland Park. What areas in Briargate and Garrity Square are the most popular? I just wanted to give you this at a glance just to show you the significance of how many visitors you'll see at Jewel. You know, they see around 250,000 visits a year. So there's a lot of density there. But some other parts of the both business districts are Garrity Square does very good numbers. And then Old Deerfield Road and Richfield Avenue, kind of intersection where Bluegrass and the police are. That's a very popular visitation area. Audience profile, similar, pretty much identical to Crossroads in terms of the households. Again, mostly due to the proximity between those two districts. So Power Elite and Booming with Confidence were the primary ones. Again, reminder, Power Elite, wealthiest households, peak earning years tend to be a little bit younger. 36 to 45 is the age of the head of the household, and they have older kids and they're homeowners. And then Booming with Confidence are established couples, peak earning years that are in suburban homes. They tend to skew a little bit older, 51 to 65, empty nesters, also homeowners, and they make about 25% of the households. One thing to end on, requesting customized reports. I think this is the best way to utilize this platform. So I highly encourage any business to request a customized report, and we can pull a variety of information that we have on these slides and additional information, including where your visitors come from, how far do they travel from, visitations by hours and days, and then the demographics that I've highlighted throughout the presentation. How to request a customized report. You're going to email the business development at cityhpil.com. You can include the business name, address, and then here are some examples of some questions you can request. I'll in general give you a report, but if you have something in particular you wanted to look at, I'd be glad to. Reports are provided within about 7 to 10 business days. I mean, I always like to note this. We'll try to run a report as best we can. Sometimes there are times when we're unable to run a report. This is an example of maybe if you're a second or third floor business and not ground level, or if you're a service business that is maybe by appointment only, there needs to be a sufficient amount of data for collection for Placer to give you a foot traffic report. So, but I still encourage you to apply because it's a great opportunity to at least see if you can get the data. I'd rather you request a report and we can see if a report works. Thank you so much for staying in tune for this report. Again, this is a pre-recorded version. We'll do another live version in quarter 2 when we report on quarter 1 findings. But again, if you have any questions, I'm going to go back to our contact the business development team slide. Feel free to give me an email or a call. I'm Corey Cohn. There's my email and phone number. Again, I try to be as much of a liaison and provide the proper resources for businesses. So please reach out. And again, thank you for listening and thank you.